Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and in 2024, Lincoln gave us an entirely refreshed version of its midsize crossover, the Nautilus. And we haven't seen a new Ford Edge since, nearly Obama's presidency, but the Lincoln Nautilus is entirely redone. It's got two different powertrains, this hybrid version and then a standard gasoline. It comes with 2 rows of seating and remarkably forward tech for a Ford Motors Company product. I've spent the last week with it, and I gotta say, right off the bat, I was initially very frustrated with this car. It's got a lot going on with it, and it's actually been one of the more dynamic cars for me to review over the last 6 months or so because my feelings on it have oscillated so greatly throughout the week. If you do want to see more on the car, check the link below. We've got a dedicated review of the Revel Ultima 28-speaker sound system, a members-only sound test, a breakdown of the infotainment system, and a fuel economy test out on the highway. But this video is going to tell you my pros and cons after spending a week with the car, and then at the end we're going to put it on the Daily Motor leaderboard. So the one you're looking at is an $80,000 black label trim, all-wheel drive with the hybrid powertrain. So about expensive of a Nautilus as you could get, but you can get them for a little bit less money with a little bit fewer features. Let's open this up. You can see a fairly ho-hum load surface, medium height. Got a lip here to get over. However, a lot of people are going to appreciate seeing a spare tire. We've got auto fold-down seats. That's nice to have, maybe. There we go. And they don't hit the front, so that's nice. Go down nice and smooth. Some places for grocery bags, power points, simple but straightforward rear. Power this closed, which I think you can do automatically as well. Yep, there we go. No real door handles, they're just buttons back here. Press that and they open up. You can see the door opens wide enough. Oh, good amount of force needed to put the seat back up there. But coming in, we're greeted with very nice leather materials and a pretty cool center cockpit area. I know it's not for everyone. Nathan said he wasn't a big fan of the interior, but I kind of like the way it's laid out. And as we'll see when we start it up, we've got a big 48-inch panoramic display up in front of us. We'll talk about that functionality as we're driving. Nice speaker grills, and other than kind of some unique ways of interacting with the vehicle, pretty straightforward. Some very adjustable seats here as well. Now, I only have one con with the Nautilus that isn't driving related, and it's the fact that when you leave the vehicle, and of course you've got proximity key, and you want to lock it, you have to tap this, but it doesn't always get your tap. You saw right there, it took me 3 times tapping it to get it to work right. I don't know if you're really supposed to kind of slide your finger on it or what the deal is. Obviously coming up, you just press the door handle and open it. But throughout the week, it hasn't always locked for me. I know that's a very petty, small complaint to start the video off with, but the rest of the cons have to do with driving the car. And it's a little bit frustrating because driving is the most important thing about a car. So let's get on the road here and I'll tell you about some of the cons of driving the Nautilus. All right, let's bring it to life. See this big 48-inch panoramic display come up on us. Get some air conditioning going. I actually don't mind the shifter right here. I like the push-button shifter. But my first complaint comes in the ride quality. And it's interesting. There's another channel that I'm sure many of you have seen, Alex on Autos. I think he's got a different channel name now. It's like Car Buyer's Guide or something. But he used to be Alex on Autos. And he's one of my more respected colleagues. I think he usually is pretty spot on about his vehicle evaluations. But at least on the first drive, I don't know if he's reviewed a Nautilus at home yet, but on the first drive he went on, he thought the ride quality for the Nautilus was quite good. And I've got to disagree with him. Let's go over some of these bumps. My biggest qualm with the ride quality in the Nautilus is too many bumps come through the cabin. This is a luxury vehicle. I'd be okay if it were floatier and kind of had a nicely smoothed out ride experience, but you feel the vehicle jostling back and forth on you almost like you're driving a body-on-frame truck, in where, yes, the larger bumps are filtered out and don't come through the cabin too harshly, but it's the softer bumps that are coming through and sort of always moving the vehicle around, and your body's always having to adjust for those bumps. That's not how a luxury car should be. So I'm disappointed with the ride quality in here, and I have been consistently from the first time I drove it until this last time. Next con is the powertrain. This has, as you can hear here, a 2-liter inline-4 turbocharged engine paired up with a hybrid electric motor, and also a CVT. And fundamentally, I'm not against continuously variable transmissions. I think they have a time and a place, and they can work really, really well. However, the combination between the graininess of this engine and the droniness of the CVT results in an experience that I would be okay with in a Ford, but I'm not okay with in a Lincoln. Just listening to this, it's not bad, but it's not as refined as a lot of its competition, and it's not as refined as this interior would make you think it should be. The next con comes down to the friction brakes in this hybrid car. They don't like having a handoff between the regen and the actual friction brake squeezing down. I'm going to see if I can come kind of gently to a stop. There's situations, whether you're braking hard, braking soft, if the car hasn't been used for a few days, where the handoff between the regen and the actual friction brake squeezing down onto the brake rotors is not smooth. And it's kind of comical to me because Ford has been doing hybrid vehicles for 2 decades at this point. And it's kind of remarkable that so many other brands, Hyundai, Honda, Lexus, Toyota, BMW, they can all get this braking handoff done really, really smoothly at this point. And yet I'm in this Lincoln and I'm having situations where I'm jerked to a stop or I'm hearing the brakes, and that's a little bit inexcusable. My next con comes in with Lincoln's BlueCruise. It works very well here. The problem is, and that I found during the highway fuel economy test, if you so much as look over to the radio to make a few adjustments, look over to see what your fuel economy is doing over there, or as I even experienced, take a drink of water, it starts beeping at you and says keep your eyes on the road. Now, I don't know if that was being affected at all by my camera, kind of where it is on my forehead. I don't think it was, because you can still see my eyes pretty clearly, and the system would work fine if I were looking forward. But don't get me wrong, I know you got to pay attention to the road. The problem is I was doing very simple things. There was even a situation in which I was looking over at the outside mirror as it changed lanes to make sure it was doing it safely, and it beeped at me. And that means the music gets turned down, it disrupts your passengers, everything. That was frustrating. My next con is very subtle. However, the way the screen in the center is both slanted and the brightness, it's hard to see in the daytime. It's getting this reflection off this lighter bit of leather here, and then it just doesn't get very bright. I have the screen brightness put all the way up. It's difficult to see, especially because the menus don't have much contrast to them. So as I'm looking here and I'm trying to see the different screen options, not very easy to see. Coming back here static for more pros, and I do have more pros about the Nautilus that have to do with the non-driving experience. And first off is the use of materials. I really like the leather that Lincoln has gone with. Very buttery smooth, smells nice, feels nice, soft. In fact, most of the materials around the cabin are well thought of. They look nice, they feel good. I'm pretty impressed by it. And I want to take this opportunity here to address a concern that some people have had with the new Nautilus, and it's the fact that it's made in China. If you are going to complain and get angry about the fact that this vehicle is made in China, I don't think you understand how the global car industry works and really the global economy in general. Do you realize that the electronic product that you're likely typing that comment on was probably made in China? Do you realize that there are many high-end luxury vehicles that are already assembled in China? Do you realize that a lot of Ford's products are also built in Mexico? Do you also realize that there were American factories where the line workers were getting drunk before their shift and doing things like leaving Coke bottles and door panels and then leaving a little note that said, haha, you found me, when the dealer finally has to spend money and time to tear the car open and find why it's continually rattling on the customer? You can build cars in China and have them come together really, really nicely. Nobody complains about the build quality of their iPhone 16 Pro and goes, yeah, but it's made in China, I'm not going to buy it. So, don't get me wrong. I understand the fundamental concern about an American car company in general not using American labor and American manufacturing in order to build their products. That's fine. You can have that concern. But don't come in here and try to tell me that the Nautilus is not as nice of a product as it would be if it were built in America. Because I can nearly guarantee you, if it were built in America, it would probably not be put together as well as it is being put together in China. So any comments that I get that don't directly address what I just said and involve China build quality, I just know that you didn't watch the video this far, and your comment is therefore invalid. That's all I want to hear about it. Anyway, now that I've had that rant out of the way, I do think the car is well put together. You got solid doors, you've got nice materials. I kind of like the way everything comes together visually. It's a little busy, but overall, I think it's cool design and nice materials. My next pro requires us to turn the car on here, and it is not this infotainment screen, but rather this infotainment screen. This smaller center display is running an Android Automotive-based infotainment system, which means it's very quick. You saw how quickly it turned on with the car. There wasn't a big, long loading screen or anything like that. Everything responds quickly to my touches, and it's using Google built in, which means it's using Google Assistant. So I can do things like, hey Google, what was the score of the last Michigan basketball game?
Michigan played Washington. The final score was 91-75 Michigan.
Or I can do things like, hey Google, navigate to the nearest Starbucks. Now this is a little bit of a mess up of having. It's actually trying to use my phone's voice command. So let me manually launch it here. It was working just fine the other day. Navigate to the nearest Starbucks.
Okay, Starbucks. Here we go.
Look how quick that was. I mean, that was instant, no editing. I said the phrase, and it simply went. It didn't say, there are 3 Starbucks within 2 miles of you. Which one would you like to go to? And then ask me line numbers or anything. It simply works. So I've actually very much appreciated the infotainment system. And to go even further into some of these examples, here's a functionality that initially annoyed me with the Nautilus. However, by the end of the week, I actually don't mind it too much. And it's the fact that the fan controls are done here in the touchscreen. And by fan controls, I mean where they're pointed. And if you've been in a Tesla, you know this is similar. There are a lot of newer cars doing this. Initially, it annoyed me. However, what I realized is that there's this control right here that chooses on-body, off-body, motion, or close. And that's more so what you want. You get in the car and you're toasty, so you go, okay, put the air on my body. And then it adjusts all the fans around you to blow on your body. Or you go, I want some air in the cabin, but I don't want it on me. Look at that. It changed all of them with one click. Or you can do a motion where they actually oscillate up and down just like an interior fan. And I'm being blown right now from foot to head. That's pretty clever. That's something you're not going to get with manual adjust gauges. That's really cool. I wonder if you can even do it with voice. Let's see. Blow the air on me.
My apologies. I don't understand.
Turn the air on body.
All right, changing the vent to body.
Look at that. Okay, so you got to kind of know what to say, but it can do it. That's pretty cool. You're not going to get that with manual adjust vents. My next pro, fairly subtle, but look down here. This is a wireless device charger. And behind it is a fan. And that means I can put my device in here and have it running Android Auto and being wirelessly charged, all while not overheating because there's a fan blowing on it. Very subtle, but huge improvement for your day-to-day use of your phone and your car. It's those little elements that, to me, are more important in a luxury vehicle, really in any vehicle, than a lot of other kind of fancy, gimmicksy sort of things. It's those real, tangible improvements to day-to-day usability of the car. It might not seem like that valuable to you in just a quick test drive or a review, but really using it day-to-day, you realize that's clever. I appreciate that. Next, this car includes something that I don't think I've seen outside of Mercedes-Benz before, and it is what Lincoln calls the digital scent. You can choose between 3 different scents: Ozonic Azure, Mystic Forest, and Violet Cashmere, and it actually emits this perfume throughout the cabin. You can choose its intensity, and you can choose the diffusing cycle. Do you want it to be continuous, long cycle, short cycle, or just one time? And it's so cool because you get in your car and you get this, very nice, this sort of refreshing scent that freshens up your cabin and sort of distracts you. And you're like, oh yeah, I paid good money for this car. That's another scent that most cars would not address, but this one does. And you can purchase different scents from the dealer and kind of make your car smell unique or different. It's, again, sounds subtle, but it really pushes this car up into more of a luxury sort of status. My next pro comes down to the lack of beeps in this car. Every newer Lexus I've driven is incessant with beeping, whether it's beeping when I change a lane, beeping when I turn on a cruise control, beeping when I've come a little bit too close to something as I'm parking or driving. It feels like I can never do anything right in a lot of new vehicles. They're these beep factories, and what it ends up resulting in is a bit of a sensory overload where you become so accustomed to the car beeping at you that you stop paying attention when you hear it beep. That's not the case in this Lincoln. We have a lot of safety features in here, including a very strong semi-autonomous driving feature in BlueCruise, and yet even when you're enabling and disabling that, it's not beeping at you. It's not saying, okay, we're engaged, now we're disengaged, this, that, and the other. No, this car is actually very unobtrusive for how much technology and safety functionality it has in it, and that's been really satisfying to me. My last pro is getting back to the powertrain. This hybrid has actually been remarkably efficient. We squeezed out just over 30 miles per gallon in our real-world highway fuel economy test, and driving it around town, yeah, it's not crazy levels of efficiency, but it is decently good, mid to high 20s in most of my driving. You can see 27.6 over there, but I know that's reading low. So fairly good fuel economy for this size and class of vehicle, but more importantly to me is the fact that it doesn't require premium fuel. And that's nice because so many luxury cars these days just go, oh, it's a luxury car buyer, they can justify paying for premium fuel. But I don't think that's fair to saddle luxury car buyers with that extra cost if you're not buying a sporty sort of vehicle. Don't get me wrong, if you're making an engine that's squeezing a lot of power out and you want to make it as refined and powerful as possible, then sure, you want a higher compression ratio, you want to use premium fuel. But Ford and Lincoln have decided, no, this 2-liter is the right engine to use for this, and it doesn't require premium fuel to get the sort of performance we need it to. Now, that being said, if they could have had it be more refined and therefore require premium fuel, maybe that would have been a worthwhile trade-off. But at least in this case, you can drive this around, and in some areas, you're saving up to $1 per gallon by using regular fuel over premium. That's a significant savings. So, the Nautilus to me has been an interesting experience. Like I said near the beginning of the video, I did not care for this car when I first got into it. It took some time driving it, spending time with it, acclimating, getting used to the functionality, and getting comfortable with the car before I was really able to give a fair assessment to it. And it's interesting because I do think there are a lot of people, if they just hopped into this at a dealership, gave it a quick test drive, they might be frustrated by it. Or if you watched a video by someone who didn't really put a lot of care and time into their review of the car, they might quickly dismiss it. And it's also interesting to me that the verdict is so out on this vehicle in the review sphere as well, because you look at someone like Motor Trend, they gave this car SUV of the year for 2024. But then you look at someone like Car and Driver, and it's ranked, 14th or 15th place in luxury midsize crossovers? So way, way down, especially for a car that's so freshly renewed like this. After spending so much time with the car, what frustrates me is the fact that the cons are things that Ford should be able to get right by now. They've been building cars for over 100 years, and yet it's the driving dynamics that actually disappoint me the most with the Nautilus. But the interior and the technology and the functionality of the car, I actually think they did a pretty good job with it. It feels just futuristic enough to be a novelty while still being powerful and functional enough to be useful in the real world. So if they would just make it drive better, this would be a slam dunk sort of car. But before we get out and wrap up, we got to put the Nautilus on the Daily Motor leaderboard. Now, because it's only the second week of 2025, only one other car on the list, the Hyundai Sonata Hybrid. I quite liked that car. This is going just below it, currently in second place on the Daily Motor leaderboard, but I do think it'll hold its own decently well as time goes on. And based on deals that dealers might be putting on the Nautilus, you might get this for a pretty good price compared to a comparable X5 or Lexus RX. And I'm actually surprised to say it, but I would consider one. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the Nautilus, check the link below, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.